There are over 500,000 kids in foster care across the United States, and making sure they're well taken care of takes a village. I'm Erin Lindstrom, and this is Foster Care Aware, a production brought to you by Tidewater Friends of Foster Care with support from the Barry Robinson Center. If you've had it on your heart to become a foster parent, volunteer, donor, advocate, or just want to learn more, you're in the right place. For more information on how to move forward, head to fostercareaware.org/next steps. And now I'm thrilled to share today's segment with you. Hey, I am Erin Lindstrom, and I am joined by Audra Bullock, the President and Director of Tidewater Friends of Foster Care, and Margie Hunt, the Senior Director of National Partnerships for Casey Family Programs. Thank you so much for joining us, Margie.
Sure, happy to be here.
Yeah. We're excited to have this conversation and get to know you and Casey Family Programs. So can you tell us a little bit about Casey Family Programs? And I know the birth and foster parent partnership is super important, so we'd love to hear about that too.
Sure. Casey Family Programs is an operating foundation that started over 52 years ago by the founder of UPS, Jim Casey. And our mission is to provide, improve, and ultimately prevent the need of foster care. So we've been in operation, as I said, for over 50 years. We have 8 direct service offices. I think that's right, 8. And we also work with child welfare departments all around the country, plus Puerto Rico, DC, and the Virgin Islands, to try to help them, support them in improving their child welfare system, but also to help reduce the number of kids and safely reduce the number of kids in child welfare overall, and helping them to return safely to families, and also help families get prevention service at the front end. So working with systems to try to help families stay out of child welfare systems, but also really help kids get home or move kids to permanency as quickly as possible in a safe situation.
Amazing. And then the birth and foster parent partnership, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in my role at Casey, I oversee our work under Joan Smith and Dr. Sanders. Dr. Sanders is a vice president at Casey, and he actually ran the LA County Child Welfare System for many years, as also the Hennepin County Child Welfare System. National partnerships, what we do is we work with many national groups to help them to focus and bring what we're hearing from the field to their work, as well as their work back to the field. So kind of back and forth from a national to a local level. Mm-hmm. We work with policy partnerships, we work with courts, we also work with constituent groups, meaning parents, alumni, kin providers, foster parents of foster care. So really working to elevate their voice in change to help improve the system, and ensure that the people who are clients or part of the system are able to help provide that really helpful information in developing a system that works for everybody. So from that, I want to say it was probably about 4 years ago, might have been 5, sorry. We started a process of working with both the Youth Law Center that's based out of California, and they run a program called Quality Parenting Initiative. And we also brought them together with the Children's Trust Alliance, who works on prevention, helped us work on a the birth parent partnership, and to really look at ways that birth parents and foster parents, or we like to call resource parents, could come together and work more collaboratively. The Youth Law Center has a program, as I said, the Quality Youth Parenting Program, that really focuses on that. And we tried to take that to that model, not specifically that model, but really how do parents and birth parents come together to really support the kids and think about the best interest of that child. And we do know that kids need to have relationships with families. Mm-hmm. Most of the kids that come into child welfare go back to their family of origins or go to a kin provider, a family relative member. So in that process, we have seen many systems, not necessarily intentionally, but partly due to foster to adopt and partly due to just systems where we are not really, the systems themselves are not encouraging relationships between a parent and a birth parent. And what that might look like is as if a child, many of people in the audience are foster parents or providers, the child may be removed and it may take 2 to 3 weeks before a parent is actually connected or hearing what's going on in the foster family that child is part of, what's happening. So something like this might be really as simple as comfort calls, what we call them, comfort calls, is a foster parent who takes a kid in, then has a conversation with the support of a worker, with the parent about what is that kid like for dinner? What is that kid like when they go to sleep? What helps them to be able to be calm? What are those small things? What's their favorite food? So that foster parent can then have the relationship, the connection with that parent, but make that child know that they have connected with the parent, perhaps make their special dinner, know what they need to go to sleep, those types of things. And then also what we found with that partnership, as it has moved along in some of that work, if you're keeping the best interest of that child at heart, a lot of relationships can really be bonded between a parent and a resource / foster parent in helping to support reunification. And that does take some support from staff. We don't expect resource parents to kind of fly on their own. Sometimes we're finding actually in the COVID-19 times that those relationships have been incredibly helpful both for a parent and for a resource parent. Sometimes we'll see a resource parent, maybe we've seen resource parents stay in touch with families multiple years past reunification. So then they become kind of a support to the bio family and to the family and to the youth.
The birth family.
Yeah.
So Margie, I think it's a really good point you bring up. And I suspect a lot of our viewers may not realize that probably the worst day in a child's life is when they enter foster care. Irrespective of what they've been through, any trauma or abuse, they know the family that they've lived with, right? They know their parents, they know the triggers. And coming into being separated from the people that they know, coming into care and going to strangers is often this feeling of being abducted. So your point of quick connection back to birth family is something I think that is a cultural shift, right, in foster care, and something that it really does take this kind of village mentality that foster parents aren't there to just usurp a child. They're there to really help facilitate the healing of a whole family. So it's families helping families. And if we think about some of the issues that families face that precipitate children coming into foster care, they can't be rectified in 6 months or a year, really. They need ongoing support. And so can you talk to me about how this foster parent, birth parent program really can help change the culture to facilitate long-term growth and healing of families?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, I think specifically the Birth and Foster Parent Partnership has just, it's just starting to work and move forward, but particularly with the QPI at work and what we have seen is that long-term relationship, and also really with our Birth and Foster Parent Partnership as well. We have foster parents who have said, I have stayed in touch, as I said, that connection to reunification and to family support can be ongoing. And we know that most people come in to foster because they care about the kids. And ultimately, the kids we know are better served or better supported when they have long-term connections at some level with their families. And once we support foster parent families or resource parents in that process, we see that most resource parents are pretty excited about being able to have that relationship, as long as, and I understand there are some circumstances where there's strong mental health issues or very deep drug and alcohol issues, but even those parents need support at some level. And so in those situations, there is, I want to make sure that people understand that there is professional, social workers, other folks helping to navigate those relationships, both with the resource parent and the bio family. But everything we have known over many years, and what we hear very clearly from both our alumni of care and also our parents and kin providers, is that particularly our young people, is that having that relationship with your family or knowing what's going on with your family is critical. And as you said, when kids come into care, they may be young, but maybe the circumstances in their family at that time made them be, in essence, what we might use the word parentified, so that they had a role of caretaking, maybe caretaking their other siblings, or in some aspects, caretaking their parent to a certain degree. So when you immediately remove them from a situation like that, which might be the right decision, they still have concern. I mean, if you think about it, for any of us in this room, even if things are hard, we still love our family. We still want connections to some degree to know that they are okay and what's going on. And as we know, a lot of families, when a child is removed, the family itself is suffering. So just removal doesn't mean that you don't worry and aren't concerned around what's going on. And that really is, I mean, I think a lot of times in this field, I've been in the field for a while, people used to think that when a kid was a young kid, that didn't really matter that much. But it does. We've learned very much that it matters a lot.
That's really right. It has everything to do with the way that brain develops, and probably most critically for very young children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And exactly. And I think that's why with supports and resource parents / foster parents really can play a critical role in helping a child manage some of the trauma that's going on, the trauma with removal, by helping them to connect and understand that their birth parent is okay, and that, as their parent, and that they are working together. And what a benefit for a young person to know that the person who is caretaking them at that time, that resource family, has some connection with what's going on with their parent. They know that they're okay. They can check in on and then you can imagine visitation really has begun to blossom in a very different way when those relationships have been maintained and the person who is caretaking the young person has some type of relationship or awareness of what is going on with the family. So I think the more we, as you say, I mean, brain research is telling us a lot and has told us a lot in the past 10 years. And now we got to kind of think about how we change our system and really change our system to be responsive to what we know is in the best interest of that child, long term.
Absolutely. And also for the family of origin. I mean, if our audience can put themselves in that place of feeling so vulnerable, out of your control, trying to do your best, because I believe, we all believe parents love their children and trying to do the best. Maybe circumstances aren't right for making all the best decisions, but what a vulnerable position to be in, to lose your children, and then all of the hoops and requirements you have to satisfy in order to get these children back. It's almost insurmountable with the oppressive pressure of, I don't have my child. Are they safe? Are they being taken care of? Because I think, many of our viewers probably, before joining the summit had this kind of ugly view of foster care. So do birth families who lose their children to foster care. It's a scary thing. And we've got to change that. And I really believe that the birth and foster family partnership is one way to start changing that message, changing that image of foster care.
Yeah, and we've heard, I totally agree, and we've heard really clearly from our parents that having a relationship, at least knowing, and exactly what you said, I mean, their minds go to initially, I mean, if you're in the middle of the crisis, is, oh my God, I don't know this person, a stranger's taking care of my child. Who are they? Are they trying to adopt? What's going on here? So having that relationship, as you said, just even a comfort call, somebody checking in with that parent who is probably at the most crisis they've ever been. I mean, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I know if somebody even if I was in my worst state ever and I had my child removed from me, I would be out of my mind. And I think anybody can relate to that, as you say. So having the ability to know, at least touch base with the person who's caretaking your child, and know that that person is there caretaking your child and wishing you the best to get healthy and supporting you in getting healthy and whatever it is that you need to get healthy. What a different scenario that is as an individual, to feel, I know this person and they're not trying to take my child, they're supporting my child in the best way they can. And the tips that I give them, if that person is treating me with a level of respect, even though I might be in the worst place that I'm in. If they treat me with respect, am I now able to know that me and this family who has taken my child in out of the goodness of their hearts, we can work together. We are both focused on the best interest of that child. And as we all say, the best interest of that child, if we're focusing on him, is maintaining relationships with family of origins. And, you know, I say that because I want to talk just a tiny bit about the other end of the system. We know how many kids age out of the system. We're trying to work on helping kids to not age out of the system without relationships. We also know that when kids age out of the system, a lot of kids immediately come right back to their family of origins, which I think when you think about it, makes sense. Those are the people they know. So if they haven't had a relationship with those folks over the years that they've been involved in foster care, they don't have a connection. I always throw this thing out. A woman I worked with, maybe you'll talk to Subado, she's pretty well known, used to talk about permanency in the sense of if you are 20, even at 28, even at 32 years old, something happens to you. Maybe you get engaged. Maybe your car breaks down in the middle of the road and you don't have anybody to call. Who do you pick up the phone? You tend to pick up that and call your family of origin. So we know that it is very important to maintain, even if a child, and most kids are reunited. So, but even if they're not, how do we make sure there's some level of relationship with either kin, family at some level, because they most likely are going to go back to that family at some point, and we all have connections. So I just throw that out as kind of seeing it at both ends, that if we can tackle it at the front end, we're going to have a lot better time around reunification. We've also seen that reunifications go up dramatically when there is a strong relationship between a resource parent and a bio parent.
Wow, it makes so much sense. And it's really, it's fascinating to me just to hear you talk about it, because in some ways, I know this is dynamic and comprehensive, and what you're putting forth is so important. And at the same time, it's so simple to have like relationship, right? And to like really lead from the heart. And when you're on the same page with everyone else and realizing that this is about supporting the child, it just creates such a different atmosphere to actually collaborate and to be on the same team, where everyone's emotions are a little bit like, okay, like you start to trust again. And I think that's so important for the child to be in an environment where there is trust. So they're feeling that because they're going to take this experience for them and internalize it and bring it with them into adulthood, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Margie, can you talk to us a little bit about, so we've talked to, through Foster Care Aware, different organizations, nonprofits, local agencies, public, private, all that stuff. Can you kind of differentiate for us when it comes to Casey family programs? How do they interact with these families? Like what does that actually look like in order for these things to be happening in the homes?
Yeah, well, we at Casey, I mean, I would say we do run private foster care. That's been our legacy for many years. Mm-hmm. We had took on a couple of years to work closely with older youth in states who had been, maybe their parental rights had been eliminated, or they were older youth and we're trying to work to get them permanency, either adopted or back with kin families. So I would say from our end, we're doing a lot of work, not specifically at the front end with the birth and foster parent partnership. We're doing that more in states and helping states directly work with that. For our direct practice, what we are seeing though, to that point, is that when we're doing these permanency roundtables or working with kids around permanency, that a lot of times those relationships that you just talked about for the older youth, we try really hard to re-find family members for them that they had been connected to. We work really hard to find, for instance, what we might call evictive kin, so kin that maybe aren't family, but they've had relationships with, to think about how to move them to permanency. But for birth and foster parent relationships, the foster parents we work with are very connected to helping to do that with the older youth. We don't work with a lot of young kids at this point. Most of the kids that we're working with are have had terminated parental rights, but that doesn't mean they don't have they don't have connections.
Right.
A lot of times what we're finding is terminated parental rights. There was not a lot of work to get connected to fathers or paternal families. So we're doing a lot of work around that as well, to just make sure that the young people that we work with directly have connections, long-term connections with their members of their extended or family, whoever their family is at that point. What we are seeing at the front end, though, with the QPI, well, not with QPI, but really with the birth and foster parent partnership. And we've seen a couple places. One woman I talked to in Florida who was running a private agency. Unbelievable changes, as you said, and unbelievable changes in, first off, in foster parents, feeling good about their job, feeling good about what they're doing, knowing their kids better that they have in their families. We have seen success from bio parents and caregivers who say the reason that they got reunified was because they had a relationship with a resource parent, and that foster parent, resource parent was there for the long haul. We've also seen some foster parents / resource parents and parents even do like kind of respite care stuff post reunification. And like, I've had parents say, that's my auntie, this is the person who helped me and my daughter reunify, and now she's part of our family, or they're part of their family.
I was going to speak to that point earlier, is that, when children stay in foster care for a prolonged period of time, especially when they're younger, 1 year, 2 years, that's a meaningful part of their life. And you, by default, become their family as well. And so as traumatic as it is on the front end to come into foster care, sometimes it can be traumatic to exit foster care. And so those relationships are ultimately, I think, in everyone's best interest, particularly the child, but the foster family, because that's the number one reason that we hear people say, I don't think I can do foster cares because I can't give them up. I couldn't love them and give them up. But in this scenario, you don't. You become an extended family. And what we have in my own personal family, we have a constellation of many different families all coming together around these wonderful, wonderful children. And if we can keep our eye on the ball, it really does take the sting out of the loss component.
Yeah. And I think I totally agree. And I think part of what the support that happens on the agency side too, for people who are, out of the goodness of their hearts, volunteering, coming in to be foster / resource parents, is that helping folks when they come in to do exactly what you just said, understand that parents are not evil people. Things happen and there's issues, and they're not the villain here. And even if you want to think of them as villain, that child loves them. So it's like, how do you change that? And we have to change how we look at parents. And so I think what you're saying is really important, because that comes both from when we're recruiting foster parents to helping them to really understand what some of the families that we are working with, by the time they come to us, maybe some of the challenges and some of the institutional racism things and other things that have gone on for these families around suffering, all kinds of different issues. But at least we help the resource parents understand what some of those challenges are. And then also understand why having a connection to your family is in the best interest of that child. Come back to that brain research. Why, if they're coming to help young people and families, they have to look at the child within the context of their family. And that's so critical. And I think when we do those kind of trainings at the front end, so that someone who's, again, volunteering out of the goodness of their heart understands that this is the best way to help a child and to help a family, and that they can play a really active role in that, to what you're saying, and they can be that connection, that extended family for families in crisis. Because if a child is coming into care, a family is in crisis at that point. And what do we need to do as a community, as workers, to join our arms around and resource parents and parents to support that child and support the family in the best way that we know how. And, back to the brain research, I think that our system for many, many, many years we thought and I think my grandmother would probably tell me I was crazy if I told her this, but we thought that you could maybe remove a child. I mean, that's how child welfare started. We could remove a child, put them into another loving community, family, and everything would be okay. And we just know now, we know better that kids are connected to family throughout their life. It's a critical component to healthy brain development and to healthy nurturing and healthy kids and healthy families. So we just got to think about how we do it better and help our systems to change to do it better, if that makes sense, and to help support resource parents the best that they can. And I have to say, the resource parents that are involved in this process, they're feeling really good. They're feeling strong. They're feeling supported. They've changed how they look at families in a lot of ways, and feel good about that. So I encourage it. It's a little, first, when we go back to our old ways of thinking, it's a little challenging, but we have to push ourselves to do that if we really want to have healthy communities and a strong, strong kids.
I love that. Yep. It really is about like stepping away from the fear and into the love, and how can you open up a little bit more and really start to form those relationships. Amazing. Thank you so much, Margie, for sharing that with us. For people who are listening and are feeling the like, I'm so into what she's sharing, where can people go to learn more about Casey Family Programs?
Sure. We have it's caseyfamilyprograms.org. We have a whole website. And there's some interesting things on our website. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there, but there's also some interesting stuff that's like voices from the field. There's a click, you can click on that. There's also the two partners that we work with on this work is both the Youth Law Center. So if you went to the Youth Law Center and you wanted to learn more about Quality Parent Initiative, that would be on that site, and you could just learn what they're doing in some of those. And then the Children's Trust Alliance is also one of our partners in this, and they have information on that. And then the Birth Parent National Partnership is actually putting information out. So if you went to either one of those sites and just typed in birth and foster parent partnership, information would come up around that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing. That was amazing. I'm going to be just kind of taking that all in for a little while, I think. So thank you.
Sure, you're
yes,
very
thank
welcome.
you, Margie.
Yeah,
appreciate all the work that you do.
Yeah,
and thank you for joining us from the West Coast.
Of
you
course.
Got up very early for an interview. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you're doing at Tidewaters, and thanks for having me. And this is just a great opportunity. I look forward to if people have questions or want to do follow-up. I'm super happy to do that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And a big thank you for listening. Foster Care Aware is all about spreading the word about how we can help the kids who are in care in whatever capacity works for you. Tidewater Friends of Foster Care is here to help support you through the journey. Whether you want to be a foster parent, volunteer, donor, or advocate, head on over to fostercareaware.org/nextsteps to learn more.